Okay, students, today we're going to just review real quickly some information we have talked about in our unit on writing expository nonfiction. First is, if you recall, that when we first started beginning the unit, we talked about some things and we spent some time in class exploring ideas and topics that we were interested in, things that were made us curious, things that we had always kind of wanted to know a little bit of something about. And we made a list of those things that we were interested in, and we ended up narrowing our choices down until we came to one that we decided to use going forward as our main topic. After deciding on our topics, we made a list of information that we already knew about the topic, and we called this list our pre-research, or we kind of shortened it, if you recall, to pre-search. We called this our pre-search. And what we did was we just basically wanted to know what we already knew about the topic so that we would know how to move forward and what information we would still need to seek out about it. Our next step, once we had all of the pre-search tackled, was to think of questions that we needed to know the answers to about our topics. What were some of the burning questions, the things that we were the most curious about finding out? And this began to become our list of research questions. We talked about how research questions help us to have focus as we move forward into the research process. We want to know what kinds of things we would actually be looking for when we went to the library and started hunting down our information. So our research questions were the next step. Finally came the day when we went to the library and we actually spent some time looking for information on our chosen topics that was geared towards the research questions that we had. Using the research questions we had come up with, we actually looked for specific information online and in books to find the answers to those questions that we had. You were reminded to use at least 3 sources, and this just helps to kind of make sure that the information you're finding is accurate and that it's kind of across the board accurate information that you can trust. Some of the other sources that we talked about, in addition to internet articles and books, were some magazine and newspaper articles, interviews, and so on. But most of us, I think, have been using internet articles, and also some of you have checked out books about your topics. So what next? Looking for information and using features like subtitles and indexes, tables of contents to narrow down our searches were helpful in the research phase of our process. But many of us now have moved on to the note-taking, and some of us even beyond that. We've decided to use note cards as our way of, or our method of getting our information and keeping it so that it can be more easily organized when the time comes. Our research questions were our guide, and as we looked up the information to those questions, we recorded each answer on a separate note card. One fact per card is helpful because we can easily manipulate and move that information around to where we need it to be when it comes time to draft. One of the things that you need to remember, and I've seen some people kind of forgetting this in the last few days, is that you need to make sure you document your source. So when you write down a fact on that note card, you really need to make sure you're going back and telling which source you got that from, which website, which book did you find that information in. And make sure that if you haven't already done that with your notes, that you take some time to do that before you start drafting, because this will make it easier for you to go back and double check facts and information if there are any questions you run into along the way. After taking your notes, you want to make sure you organize your thoughts. You're going to do this by putting all of your cards out on the table in front of you and sort of seeing which ones tend to go together, which ones are related, which ones have similar ideas, and placing those in groups by category. This will help you also see how many paragraphs you're looking at, because essentially each category group that you come up with when you start organizing is going to become its own paragraph. So that is something you want to consider as well. Finally, once you've got your notes written and your note cards organized, it is time to draft. And really, the hardest part of the work is done at this point. You just have to take the cards that you've organized and you have to rewrite that information in paragraph form or in sentence form on your draft itself. Make sure when you do this, you paraphrase. You put the information in your own words. We don't want anyone falling into the habit of plagiarizing or taking the information directly from the source and copying it word for word. That is something you want to avoid at all costs. So paraphrase, don't plagiarize. That's the name of the game. And hopefully, once we get through the drafting process and make a few minor revisions and maybe touch up some of the editing, you will have a fascinating and very exciting nonfiction expository essay to share with your class and to publish for a test grade. I look forward to reading all of them and finding out all sorts of interesting information about your exciting topics, and look forward to seeing how you learn from your classmates and the other students who will be sharing information with you. Have a great afternoon, and I look forward to finding out lots of interesting information from you in the very near future.